Welcome to the Golden Seams podcast. I'm Gabe, and along with my co-host Michae, we're thrilled to have you join us on this transformative journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Our podcast is all about helping you uncover your authentic self, find your true calling, and create prosperity in alignment with your deepest values and aspirations.
We're diving deep into the theme of boundaries, a crucial aspect of living authentically and pursuing your true path. We'll be exploring Melissa Urban's insightful book, The Book of Boundaries, Set the Limits That Will Set You Free. How has it felt to honor everyone's needs but your own? To sell yourself out, to keep other people happy, to take on too much whenever people demand it, to spend all that energy on people, conversations, or behaviors that never give you anything back. Said with so much love, I bet the reason you're reading this book is that it's not going very well at all. What I'm giving you here is a better way, one that leads to more fulfilling relationships, improved self-confidence, better health, and more time and energy for the things that are important to you. It may be uncomfortable, but I guarantee it will be worth it. Boundaries are how we care, stay supportive, and give to those we love without sacrificing our own health and happiness in the process. That's Melissa Urban from Chapter 1, A Crash Course on Boundaries. We're going to be covering knowing when you need a boundary, the 3 steps of boundaries, identifying the need for a boundary, energy leakage, signs that you might need a boundary, boundary alerts, which give you a moment to compose yourself before you set a boundary, how to circle back in order to set a boundary when the initial moment has passed because you were so shocked in the moment that you didn't set a boundary, and why it's not necessary for you to show the context of your boundary or to give an explanation, strategies to help you hold your boundaries, guilt associated with setting boundaries, and trauma, reclaiming your power through setting boundaries.
Melissa starts out telling a story about Charlie who's dreading a visit from her mom coming up because her mom comments about her weight and it cuts through, really affects her sense of self. And the comments aren't helpful, so she gets apprehensive when her mom comes to visit. She says, this kind of dread should ring an alert inside of your brain. Ding, ding, ding. Boundary needed. If a boundary is a line that marks the limits of an area, in this case, your area of comfort, safety, and mental health, and feeling anxious, nervous, or avoidant of a certain person or conversation topic is a sure sign that your limits are being overrun and that a boundary is necessary.
Because we all love somebody talking about our weight or the way we look. In
Always
those
welcome.
passive aggressive kind versions, I fall into the line where she talks about the less healthy responses there, Gabe,
Oh, yeah.
where when I go in and I know I'm going to be dealing with somebody that I find difficult, that I should have had a boundary 100 miles before, I've done all of this. And then the worst one, you start making jokes about yourself. If you say the joke first, if you tease about yourself first, I still do this. It's such a
Yes.
habit. Thank you, Gabe.
You're
D
welcome.
minus. I do it because it's less hurtful than all the other crap that people say. These are definitely less healthy ways of creating boundaries. She talks about how you sell yourself out when you do that. It's the easier way to take the other person's power away from hurting you.
Oh man, that is also a huge energy demand to be hyper vigilant for when it's coming, when you anticipate it. And then for me, I notice that when I feel that way, whatever form of boundary, if any, or communication that happens starts out at volume level 11 or intensity 11. There's no dimmer switch on that.
Mhm. Melissa says the very first step is knowing when you need to make a boundary. And then she offers the 3 steps of boundaries. 1, identifying the need for a boundary. 2, set the boundary using clear, kind language. And 3, holding the boundary. When she goes into discussing identifying the need for the boundary, she says a boundary is about your behavior, not theirs. What I can do is set a limit around the way I receive what the other person is telling me, around my own thoughts. The boundary isn't, don't question my decisions. That isn't under my control. Instead, I say, I won't accept your opinions on my decision. That focuses on my behavior and not theirs. And this is specifically around Melissa setting a boundary with something that happened with her parents and telling her how to co-parent her son. I think the take home there is a boundary is about your behavior, not theirs. I really like the gut check. When I started listening to my gut, things started falling into place so much more easily.
I totally relate to that. And what's interesting is when she's talking about this boundary she set with her parents, she says, "To be honest, it seemed like my parents knew this was coming. They said that they understood and would respect my request. I was then able to relax and enjoy our time together, sharing family updates without fear they'd make the same kind of suggestion again." That one kind of struck me because it had me reflect on how many transgressions were allowed because of lack of communication on my part, or lack of clarity, or lack of reminders, perhaps. Going back to the mind reading expectation that I'm very guilty of. And I like that in a couple places in this chapter, there's like a pleasant surprise to the boundary setting, a nice reminder that it's not always going to be the way the fearful mind anticipates new things.
She talks about feeling dread or anxiety around the idea of spending time with someone is the loudest sign that a boundary is needed. And we used to say this when I worked in business, someone would leave you feeling oily. What our definition of oily was, you shook this person's hand and it felt you had fish oil or oil left on your hand, thick and sticky. We knew we didn't want to do business with them.
Hmm.
We'd always say that guy's really oily. It's not nice for
Hey,
me. That's the gut check.
yes, learning to listen and honor it, because we're the ones carrying that feeling around when we don't.
When somebody is oily and your gut goes off, run, don't walk.
Hmm.
That is the biggest gift you can give yourself. Entangling yourself with somebody, it doesn't feel good. Whatever you got to do, no, thank you. That's
Right.
not going to work for me.
I keep thinking every time I don't say no and set a clear boundary, I am basically saying yes.
I know. She says that pit of your stomach feeling is a key indicator that there is some aspect of your relationship that would be smoothed over or repaired with a boundary. That is tremendous. You can enjoy a sample of our work by listening to our discussion of The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy, along with our free gift of a 33-minute subliminal audio on harmony, all available on the Golden Seams Patreon, link below.
I've been listening to the Harmony Subliminal for a couple weeks. I've been noticing tremendous shifts in my life. Something that I've always struggled with is my anxiety. And as I've listened to the audio, I've noticed the world shifting around me. Previously difficult conversations with family have been smoothed out, and a lot of space has opened up in my relationships. I had a blast coloring the mandala and listening to your audios.
That's the benefit of having everything being harmonious for you. I have heard things from people letting their children listening to it to where they were having difficulties at school, possibly even being bullied, things like that. And all of that just goes away. It offers that for everyone. In my own life, I've noticed wonderful synchronicities that come together with it. Go check it out.
You won't regret it.
We would love for you to share with us how the Golden Seams Harmony Subliminal has worked in your life. You can find a link to it in the notes or go directly to Patreon, found in the App Store, where you'll find it under the Golden Seams. Thank you for reaching out to us and participating in bringing greater harmony for yourself and those in your life and throughout the world.
With the Golden Seams, you're not just listening to a podcast, you're embarking on a path to inner harmony, personal empowerment, and authentic prosperity. Don't miss out on this opportunity to revolutionize your approach to boundaries, self-care, and living your true purpose. Subscribe to our Patreon today and start your journey towards a more balanced, fulfilling life that's truly aligned with your authentic self.
Melissa goes into this section about energy leakage. She says every interaction you have is an energetic exchange. I believe this 1,000,000,000%. Gabe does too. And that is why we're having Maria. I've already interviewed and talked to her. She is going to be one of our guest speakers on the Mastermind Memoir, and she is coming in to talk about energetic boundaries, different ways to set them to protect yourself and serve yourself and others through energetic boundaries.
I think it's a great supplement to what Melissa shares on how to vocalize the boundary. And you can also add to your toolkit some ideas about how to protect your own energy without words.
It's wonderful. Melissa goes on to say, sometimes those exchanges leave you feeling invigorated, positive, and restored. Isn't that true? When you're around somebody who's supportive, you get those feelings. We all know
Yes.
what it feels like to leave the restaurant, close Instagram, or stop looking through those old photos and feel depleted, anxious, overwhelmed, frustrated. This is energy leakage, where your interactions are consuming more energy than they're giving back. That is so true.
It's incredible to acknowledge. She says right after, you may not even realize it's happening. And that part hit me because with the lack of awareness of what I'm feeling or experiencing, and not feeling capable or able to create the space and the energy I want around myself, I become completely oblivious to all of the different energy patterns and the dynamics that I'm allowing into my space and participating in.
It is such a big deal who's in your life and where you exchange your energy. Melissa goes on and she says, in these interactions, your energy is getting sucked in only one direction, out. That feeling is a sure sign that your relationship is missing a boundary. And then she goes in and she talks about signs you might need a boundary.
Melissa says you feel dread or anxiety around a conversation topic. You consistently avoid certain people. You regularly receive unsolicited opinions or commentary. You feel like the relationship is one-sided. You agree to everything just so things can go smoothly. You're told directly or indirectly that their feelings are more important than yours. You feel drained in their presence or after they leave. You are regularly sucked into conflict or drama. You feel negative or anxious after spending time with them, and you've considered taking a break from them. Wow. Yeah. Should get a thermometer installed.
I I would simply like to say, I feel like this is a resume for my relationships throughout my life. If you're like me and you can check every box, you need to get out there and get this book now because I'm telling you with love. She talks about energy leakage, how it happens outside of relationships with other people, but sometimes it's self-inflicted. It always starts and ends with us. It really and
Yeah.
truly does. But she says this again, seeing myself here. If you find your solo endeavors leave you feeling angry, drained, or just plain depressed, it's the perfect place to set a boundary with yourself, a loving limit from you to you designed to keep you safe and healthy. And she specifically talks about staying up late, zoning out on Netflix.
Oh,
Netflix has been my therapist for such a long time.
oh no, Netflix, YouTube. I got a whole list. I feel like if we were playing bingo, I would win. I think I got all of these.
I know there's no free. We don't need a free. She tells us that boundaries aren't mean. This part is crucial. She says we, especially women, are often told that it's selfish to put our own feelings and needs first. This is a common objection to boundaries, that setting them feels cold or punitive. You're building a wall between people and creating division. But remember, boundaries aren't walls, they're fences, and good fences make for good neighbors. Boundaries also allow those who care about us to support us in the way we want to be supported. This goes back to what we were talking about previously, love languages. This is how
Yeah.
I want to be treated. This is how it's meaningful for me to be treated. This is how I feel valued if you treat me this way. I think that's what a boundary says. The
Yeah.
underlying theme is for yourself, others' needs are not more important than your own. We're all standing on equal footing here. That has to anchor into your mind.
Yes. This idea that we have the right to create the life that we want and a life that we love as the priority of our energetic investment, the utmost importance of our attention and actions. I feel as I read this is always putting it in context of how does this fit into the life that I love and want to be living, and how can I move closer to it from where I am.
It's really true. I also feel when someone tells me a boundary, it tells me more about them. It tells me how to treat them. And because I value them, I want to treat them that way. And I want our relationship to always feel good.
Yeah.
By sharing that, you're helping others and making it easier for them to respect your needs.
And it pulls out of the realm of expectations and anticipations and puts the power back in our hands by using simple tools that are easy to execute and evaluate the results of, instead of playing like the mind reader game.
She says you're not being mean when you set boundaries, you're being kind. to yourself and your relationships, but that doesn't mean they're not uncomfortable. Any conflict can be uncomfortable. Here, here, I agree with that.
And it seems when we don't confront isn't the right word, acknowledge or address uncomfortable feelings, it seems it builds pressure to become a conflict where you could have a communication or a boundary. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict until it's not respected. And then you have to figure out how to protect yourself from it. We don't have to subject ourselves to anything that isn't in alignment with the life that we want.
When she says setting boundaries can be uncomfortable because when we set a boundary, we're expressing a limit that hasn't yet been established,
Mm.
while perhaps pointing out someone else's inconsiderate behavior and asking if the other person is willing to make an adjustment for the good of the relationship. Wow. It's a vulnerability. You're offering this saying, this doesn't work for me.
Shows you care enough to want to make
Yes.
it work.
Yeah, it does. She said the main reason people don't set boundaries where they need them is because it is so damn uncomfortable. Speaking up in the moment, advocating for yourself, and asking for what you need is uncomfortable. But what's both uncomfortable and damaging is reaffirming the story that someone else's feelings are more important or worthy than your own, which is what you do every time you swallow your healthy boundary in an effort to keep the peace.
Hmm.
The truth is, when someone oversteps your limit, there is no comfortable solution. But one path is paved with short term discomfort that leads to major long term improvements in your health and happiness, and the other path is just an endless circle that leaves you feeling unworthy, anxious, angry, and resentful. And there is that building up.
Yeah.
It's bend, 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 and then you break.
This is almost an invitation to feel into what that path will be if you don't decide to make a change. I think if you're anything like me, you already know what it's like to be in these distorted dynamics and how much energy is required to find balance afterwards or around or during. And when I really sit with it and I put side by side the weight and the discomfort, I feel like the choice becomes obvious. Although I
Yeah.
will say I didn't know I had path one as an option for a long time.
Step two, set the boundary using clear, kind language. When I used to set a boundary, I was ready to explode. It was so long past when I should have set an initial boundary.
Yeah.
She says, here's something that may sound obvious but isn't. In order to set a boundary, you actually have to set the boundary. You can't hint, suggest, or otherwise behave in a manner that is designed to get others to guess where your limit is. People aren't mind readers. If you need to set a limit around your own comfort, safety, or mental health, you'll have to spell that out. This felt so vulnerable. Here is where she defines clear as kind, and she says that she got this from Brene Brown's Dare to Lead, Brave Work, Tough Conversations, Whole Hearts. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. She talks about where Brene says feeding people half truths or bullshit to make them feel better, which is almost always about making ourselves feel more comfortable, is unkind. Not getting clear with a colleague about your expectations because it feels too hard, yet holding them accountable or blaming them for not delivering is unkind. Clear is kind.
Mm. This part was big and it reminded me of that part from the last book we read where the truth is always interesting. I think it was the
Mm.
horse who said it to the fox. And the
Mm-hmm.
fox in that moment was scared of speaking because he wasn't sure if what he had to say was interesting. And I feel like it ties into this a lot, actually. The fear component, I think, or whatever energy is repressing it. And she nails it. It is about us being comfortable in the situation and not about developing further connections or healing, right? It's this self-preservation mode that people pleasing.
Part of this is that you have to start taking steps that create an energetic vibration that says, I value myself.
Yes.
And then when you know the value of yourself, it's easier to say, this is my limit, and you can do it in a kind way. And that's just the beginning of our journey into boundaries and self discovery. If you're ready to transform your life, create prosperity aligned with your authentic self, and master the art of setting clear, kind boundaries, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Remember, upcoming with this theme, we're diving deep into breathwork with Deanna, exploring energetic boundaries with Maria, a Brazilian shaman, and unveiling exclusive content that will revolutionize your approach to personal growth.
Thank you for joining us on the Golden Seams podcast. We're truly grateful for your presence and participation in this journey of self discovery and personal growth. Remember, Your path to authenticity and prosperity is unique, and we're honored to be a part of it. If you found value in today's episode, we invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your authentic light. This is Gabe and Michae signing off from the Golden Seams. May your path be golden, and may you find the strength to mend and beautify the broken parts of your life, just like the art of kintsugi. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening.